Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 255.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad that you are here today because here's what I know. You're going to learn a lot. This is going to be one of those episodes where you're going to want to replay it. I can tell you that right now because here's the deal. When it comes to building your business, understand that your business, that big thing that you probably are still working to define, is a system built on many systems, many concurrent functioning and working systems. And you're just like, I just want to make money. I just want to have people improve their life. I just want to be able to do my thing, Jay. And I understand that. But before we do our thing, before we get the privilege of serving other people, and most importantly, before we get those thank you notes that we usually call currency from our customers, we've got some work to do. And today's guest, he's going to help you do that work. I have with me today none other than Scott Beebe. He, right now, currently lives out in Bluffton, South Carolina, not too far from my hometown in Fayetteville, North Carolina, I'm sure, or at least closer than I am right now. Here's the thing. Business coach, trainer, strategy groups. This guy knows how to help you take what you call your passion, turn it into a vision, and make it into, most importantly, a business that works on systems. So, as I said, you might be washing the dishes. I know the kids are right there next to you. Put them to bed if you have to, but take out some notes, something to write with, and let's listen to what Scott Beebe has to say. Scott, you there?
Jay, I've got my sleeves rolled up. I've got the shovels, the rakes. I mean, we're about to get to work now.
That's right. Let's get every tool out there and say, let's go. I love it. I love it. All right. So here's how we're going to do this. Scott, I tend to ask everybody the same first question simply because, well, I just think it's very, very appropriate. I tend to look at today's entrepreneurs, of course, you being one of them, a lot like yesterday's superheroes. So, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. I mean, I don't know. They're all superheroes in various different ways. And I think entrepreneurs and superheroes have a ton in common, including occasionally getting dressed up and using our special abilities and helping and serving other people in that way. However, another important thing that we have in common is simply the fact that before we went around in our capes and tights and leaping from tall buildings, we were just usually normal people. And what I really want to know, and I think what everyone else wants to know is let's say before the kids, before the podcast of your own, before working with all the entrepreneurs and businesses, before all that, who is Scott Beebe?
I'm trying to figure out when they handed out the capes because I think I missed that. The distribution of those capes, and I still feel that way. I still am that way. I'm still Scott. I don't even like to say my middle name, but I'm still Scott Eugene Beebe. I'm just, the guy that grew up all over the country. My dad is an engineer, and so we just followed the work around the country. I had the privilege of being born in D.C., lived in Charlotte, Houston, Texas, Portland, Oregon, finished high school in Greenville, South Carolina, college at the University of South Carolina. I did my theology work out in Texas. I mean, I've just been all over. And so I'm a bit of a nomad, but I'm married to an incredibly attractive lady in all regards who grew up in the same house her whole life. And so when she and I got together, that was a very it was a very unique mix of two people, one who grew up very nomadic, one who grew up very stationary, came together. And even before we got into the entrepreneurial life, she and I were doing entrepreneurial adventure, but just not in business. And so about the last 18 years of my life or so, Jay, I've been in this strange mix. About 50% of it has been in large for-profit corporations, particularly with Pfizer. And the other half of it, I've been working and had the privilege to work in faith-based nonprofits, both in the church and non-governmental organizations here in the U.S. and then also in Nigeria and West Africa. And so it's been just a bizarre, I call it a nonlinear blueprint. In fact, I just got done meeting with a client of mine who's an architect, and so I like to speak in blueprint terms. And my blueprint's just very nonlinear, and I'm not even sure what the structure would be if you stood back and looked at it.
Got it. Well, we being real estate entrepreneurs, at least most of us, we like blueprints, especially when they revolve around a building that we get to own and hold for cash flow over time. So we can totally get with the lingo. I also found something that was very interesting. I don't know if you guys who are listening know this, but I grew up very nomadic too. I like the way you said that, but it was mostly military related. So I was in and out of the country. And my wife is very much like your wife in the sense that she grew up in the same place. And I'm just like, wow, that's pretty interesting. But this does bring up a question that I was thinking. Do you think, and because I wonder about this sometimes, do you think that your nomadic upbringing is a benefit or a liability when it comes to being in business?
Jay, I tend to be a both and kind of guy, and not to walk the fence. It's just there are serious values to it, and then there are things that I've got to learn to adjust off of. And so let me start with the adjustments, the things that I've had to learn there. In the entrepreneurial spirit, yes, are you very inventive? Of course, Michael Gerber talks about the inventiveness of the entrepreneur. At the same time, you have to have good old-fashioned stick-to-itiveness in what you're doing. So when you come up with an innovative idea, which I know you're cursed with the mind that comes up with innovative ideas. I mean, you just look at your platform,
right,
and you've got product idea after product idea. And the good news is all of them are valuable. And so when I look at the things that, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, and I think about the things that I have to adjust, if you have longevity to an idea, that's, Jay, what I've really had to learn. And frankly, that's what my business coach, Aaron Walker, has talked to me a lot about, is the longevity of an idea. Hey, once you get in on something, and I've even created it, I mean, you laugh at me for this, I'm a systems guy, but I've created a system around how I can create longevity to an idea. And so let me give you one example. I've heard a lot of people say that writing thank you notes is a powerful way to continue a relationship that you've already developed. And so I believe in it. When guys write me thank you notes, I'm honored, I'm overwhelmed. I can't believe they took the time. And so I actually have a daily task list. And the first item on that daily task list, I look at it just about every morning. And the first item on that task list is writing a thank you note to somebody. And it's the longevity of an idea. And so learning that I didn't stay in one place for a very long time, being an entrepreneur, I had to learn. I had to get over that and kind of conquer that. And so I would say that that's one of the biggest things I've had to adjust. Now, the other side of that, of being nomadic and moving around and traveling all over the world and doing those things, is I am naturally prone to idea generation, constantly idea generation. So not only for my own self, but Jay, you and I talk much longer, and I'm going to start bombing ideas at you as well. And most likely you'll do it to me also.
Oh, man. Do you know how painful it feels sometimes? I'm just like...
Well, Jay, how painful it is for you and I. Come on, man. How painful it is for our wives.
Right. Right. I mean, I don't even understand how how can you handle all of the ideas I come up with every day? And then my team, oh, God bless their heart. Every meeting we have an agenda, but halfway through an agenda is pretty much useless. And we end up discussing 12 different things that I've had a thought about that all could be really awesome in the last 15 minutes. And okay, so what I hear, though, is and I hope everyone else picked up on this, because there's a mix of both of these. It's not an either or that's absolutely required. And I hear you on the sticking with something and seeing it through and being able to actually let something fully develop before we skip to the next great new shiny object. I totally understood. But I'm going to say, and just kind of wonder, if you had to err on one side or the other, plan it out or just go get it done, is there a side that you would tend to pick?
Well, here's why I struggle with the question, is because on one hand, I've got guys in my life who will tell me, fire the gun and ride the bullet. And, and you know what I'm talking about. And so
yes,
you've got this concept of or ready, fire, aim. You've heard all of those things.
Yep.
And there's value in all of them. Here's what you have to realize, though. And again, it may sound like I'm walking the fence, but it's a constant adjustment in the life of the entrepreneur that I'm learning. And that is, all right, even if you fire the gun and ride the bullet, you still have to course correct the bullet as you go. And so we live, as you mentioned, Jay, we live here on the coast. And so I'm in a marine environment. I'm in a navigational beacon marine kind of environment where we live by GPSs. And so when you're on the water, when you're on the river, you're out in the ocean, you live by a GPS. And sure, you can go out without having set your coordinates, but boy, you better at some point figure out where your destination is, because you're going to have to course correct all along the way. So again, it really is a both and. If I had to err, I would err naturally on the side of planning and on the side of kind of the longevity, trusting that God would provide me with the people around me to come up with the ideas.
Okay, now we're on. This is good. I hope you guys are listening, because I hope you're picking up what he's putting down, because this is really good. Right. Here's the thing. I deal with this a lot with either my coaching clients or just people in general. They're always asking me, how on earth can they get started, because they don't know XYZ yet. I mean, specifically in my world, especially dealing with real estate entrepreneurs, there's like, well, Jay, how can I get started? I don't have, and then there's this long list: knowledge, time, money, credit. I don't have people. I don't have this. And I like you, work diligently to get people to focus on, okay, what's the end destination look like anyway? Let's pretend that we don't need to have all those little pieces figured out. I have no clue how you're going to get there, but what do you want it to look like when you are? What is the magic sauce? Free us, please. Scott, help us out. Tell us what we got to do to be able to come up with that destination so that we can at least get started.
Jay, I could give you a list of questions that you could begin to ask. I mean, simple questions like, when you were 6 years old, what did you dream about doing when you were 26? When you were growing up, what was it that other people told you were great at? I mean, all these questions, there's a whole compendium of questions I could ask you. And you can find all of these on Google, by the way. And so
Google does know everything.
Yeah. What I don't want to give you is content that you can find in the general public. What I do want to give you is something that is near impossible to do. You remember the days of P90X, and I don't even get paid for mentioning I wish I did, get paid for mentioning their stuff. But one of the things that attracted so many guys to P90X, and frankly today CrossFit, the whole CrossFit movement, is because it's hard. And when all is said and done, we don't value stuff that's easy. And when we saw P90X come out and Tony Horton said, this is hard, it's going to make you throw up, you're going to feel horrible, and then an hour later you're going to feel great. And in 90 days, you're going to look incredible. We're all in because we know that kind of diligency will lead to something of great value. And so when we're talking about vision, it's not the questions to be asked. All those are important. You need to ask good questions, solid questions. In fact, we're working on an online course now called How to Create a Family Vision. And it's literally going to walk moms and dads through how to set a vision destination for their family with a mission statement, value set, just like a business, no different. And so we've got a list of questions and questions to ask as parents, to ask as a whole family, to ask as children. Businesses need to do the same thing. But here's the magic pill. Here's the silver bullet. And I usually don't prescribe these. But the magic pill is sitting down with your calendar and a pen and saying, this coming Thursday at 3 o'clock until 5 o'clock, I'm going to sit in this room for 2 hours, either myself or with one or two other trusted people. And I'm going to crank out what I want my business to look like in X number of years, 8 years, 10 years, 5 years. It doesn't matter. But just picking a timeline and picking a time and sitting down, and you can go categorically. This is what I want my business to look like financially, from a personnel standpoint, from a product mix standpoint. I want to stop, in your case, I want to stop selling $250,000 homes, and I want to start selling $500,000 homes. I want my product mix to look different. I want more commercial, less resident, all of those sorts of things, to be able to put them in categories. But the biggest issue, Jay, set the time, 3 to 5, throw your cell phone in the car and leave it there. Get a paper and a pen and start writing out. Exactly. Don't even do it on computer. Usually I'm a Google Drive nut. I spend all my whole back end of my business is driven on Google Drive. But when I know I've got to sit down and articulate something, I put the computer away. I put the phone away and I sit down, just me, a sheet of paper, and God himself. And we just start walking through and articulating what I want the world to look like in X number of years and whatever it is that I'm looking at.
Got it. Now, just so you know, Scott, everybody just figured out you're not from California because you actually think $250,000 gets a house out here.
Sorry. Contextualize.
Yeah, it's okay. I just think
a tiny house on wheels.
Yeah,
Sorry.
right. But that's okay. I understood where you were going with that. I did. I really did. But there's something that you said that okay, so this has been something that's been bugging me. So here's something of a rant / Scott, please help me. You said we don't value things that are easy, which I absolutely get it. I agree. But there's this concept out there that somehow if I want to do a business, be my own boss and all this other stuff, all this freedom and choice and things that I want, that I could somehow do it quickly or somehow shortcut the process. Many of us want to experience the event. We want to, quote unquote, arrive, but we don't want to go through the process. And that's what you're hinting at. You're saying there's a process to this thing that you want to achieve. So why do we avoid the process? And I'm going to just put it out there. This is the very process that you teach people to do and go through systematically. But it's like the very thing that we're running from because we were looking for the shortcut.
When we're faced with reality, we tend to shy away from it because we tend to see things that we just don't want to see. Because if we see them, Jay, we've got to deal with them. And so let me take, for instance, I've had a great privilege to work with my client heroes all day today. So I've worked with a real estate attorney, with an architect, with a spray foam contractor, and with a home building contractor all today. And in each one of those situations, I have asked each one of these highly valued, heroic clients a certain question of, do you have this? For instance, do you have an incentive comp model that you've built before? I also worked with a guy who owns a vending machine business, and I asked somebody else, do you have a hiring process for how you hire people? And Jay, every one of them said, no, I don't. And you could see it when they respond, because I meet with most of them face to face. You can see it when they respond like, I don't want to admit this, but no, I don't have a hiring process. I don't have an incentive comp calculator. I don't have a fiscal dashboard I look at every month. I don't have these things. And so when I ask these questions, what I tell my heroic clients is, listen, I want you to answer no, because when you answer no, I have a job. I can help you find that. And so It makes me happy when you tell me you don't have these systems in place, because you know what God gave me? He gave me the talent to be able to uncover and to articulate those systems and processes. He didn't give that to you, and that's fine. What he gave to you was the capability to do incredible real estate law and run incredible franchising vending businesses and doing all that. I can't do that. You do that. What I can do on my end is I can help you identify and articulate these systems and processes. But when we do it, we've got to ask hard questions. And when we ask those questions, you've got to face the reality that, you know what? We don't like to admit that we're not real good at doing stuff. And when I ask you a question, have you had a chance to do this yet? And the answer is no. What we're kind of doing, Jay, is we're admitting, I kind of fell short on that. And so now we're admitting that we don't have the superhero cape on. But the beauty is you don't need a superhero cape. And I tell all my clients, I want to free you from this also. You don't have to hire rock stars. If we can build a process and a system, now you can hire normal people for you.
Totally.
And you don't have to constantly be looking for overpaid rock stars.
I will say this, McDonald's has been hiring teenagers for quite some
On
time.
the backs of a multi-billion-dollar business on the backs of teenagers.
It's just amazing. It's like, and I also appreciate you recognizing the difference in genius, because I totally got skipped on that whole systems thing. I'm just like, whoo, gone. But if you need a master executioner, I'm your guy. I will get it done and built, and it might not do what it's supposed to do, but we'll have something.
Yeah. Well,
at the end of the day.
And Jay, that's the, one of the things that we talk about a lot is the DISC personality. We go back to it over and over and over again. And usually when I talk vision, mission, values, I usually get an eye roll. Like, yeah, we've done that before. I was with a corporation that spent millions on it and it sat on the shelf, and I get it. Then the second thing that I mention is when I talk about DISC profiling, everybody goes, oh my goodness, I've done 1,000 of those. Yes, you have, but you've never implemented any of them.
Right.
And so when we implement them, I get to see, okay, Jay is the executioner, which is it's a tough term, by the way.
I know, right?
You're a great implementer. Let's put it that way.
Yes, absolutely.
So Jay is a rock star implementer. I'm decent at systems and processes. Man, we get those two things together. Oh my goodness. I mean, that is, but any one of us kind of by ourselves, that's why teams are so powerful.
Right.
And there's a book, Katzenbach and Smith, The Wisdom of Teams. And they talk about that synergy that comes together. It's not that you got two people just happen to work together well. It's that, all right, Jay's an incredible implementer. Scott can build the back-end systems and processes and help him identify those. Here's what we have to have. We have to have the execution of the implementation. You've got to set the date and pull the trigger. Indeed.
And that's the thing. I getting that trigger pulled and setting that date, that's second nature to me. But and then I had someone tell me not long ago, they were like, if you just spent like 3% more time, 3 to 10% more time planning, you would go a lot further faster. I'm like, planning? Who wants to do that thing?
Yeah.
Yet that's the very thing. And again, I love how you keep bringing this up, that it's not an either or proposition. Okay. So for those of you who are would-be real estate entrepreneurs right now, here's what I'm saying. Yes, you have to write the offer. You've heard me say that a ton. Yes, there's a time for due diligence and that must be done. However, it doesn't mean you have to do both of those things. I am not naturally suited to the due diligence part, so that gets handed to someone else on my team who loves the process of actually going through it.
Yeah.
God,
Jay, let's talk about the offer. Let's talk about that.
Oh, sure.
Let's take a granular approach to this, okay?
I love it.
And so every real estate agent has to write an offer. I mean, it's just part of your business.
Otherwise, they don't get paid. Yes, there's a problem with that.
You name me one real estate agent who wakes up in the morning and goes, I cannot wait to write an offer today. Not the thrill of the offer. I'm talking about the paperwork.
Oh,
I cannot wait.
to
sit down with a template.
None of the ones that make money say that.
And so, to your point, it has to get done. There's no way around it. Well, what makes up an offer? And this is where you've got to start looking from a systems mindset. But that is a replicable system.
Yep.
And here's the question I tell my heroic clients all the time. I say, hey, I want you to start thinking this way. This next thing that I'm about to do, whatever it is this the last time that I could possibly do this and still run my business? So let's take the real estate offer. This next offer you're about to do, is this potentially the last time that you could do this? And I'm going to argue yes. And here's what I mean by that. So what we would do is we would take your templated offer. There is, 80% of the information in that template that is replicated. It says the same thing over and over and over again.
You got that right.
There is 10 to 20% that's unique. The price, the terms, those are all unique. You're the one that has to put that information in there. So here's what in fact, we recently did this for the architect last week, is we found out he was busy writing 20 to 30 proposals a month at a time frame of about an hour per proposal.
Wow.
And so the average business owner's hourly rate is anywhere between $200 to $1,000 an hour, depending on your business profitability, et cetera.
Right.
And so we determined if we could cut out a half an hour per proposal, we were going to save, let's take the low end, 20 proposals. We were going to save roughly 10 hours a month, every single month, at Take the low end, $200 an hour. Now all of a sudden we just bought him $2,000 an hour in billable time that he could go design. So here's what we did. We went to an exclusive, high-end, very expensive software called Google Drive, which, by the way, is totally free. And we created the Google document that every line item within, or not the Google document, the Google form, where every line item within the Google form was the unique information from the proposal. In this case, for real estate, from the offer. And so the price point, the terms, the unique items, and anything that was checkbox, you could just put those in the Google form. So now all your real estate professionals have to do is pull up their Google form, which is actually on a cheat bar on their Google Chrome bar right there. All they have to do is click it, and it pops up, and they type date, offer amount, terms of the agreement, a few other things, and hit submit. Nice. And when they hit submit, they've got that thing set up so it sends an automatic email to somebody who makes a whole lot less money than they do. Say $5, $10, $15, $20 an hour per project.
Right.
And they put that in the template. They send it out with an email sequence and series that you've helped them build. And it now, Jay, does it take an hour to 2 hours to build all of that? Yes.
Right.
Absolutely it does. But guess what it saves you on the back end is tenfold, 100-fold, 1,000-fold of the time that you would spend in putting these offers together.
Man, I told you at the beginning of this episode, you're going to want to have some notes. And you guys know me. I like to study questions. And I think that was they're the most powerful instrument that we have in so many different ways. And if you didn't write it down, I'm going to repeat it. Is this the last time I could have to do this? And if the answer is yes, which is what I'm hearing you say, Scott, is most of the time I ask this question, the answer is probably yes. And what I need to start doing is documenting that process and being able to leverage. It sounds like you like to leverage technology and tools a lot, which is right up my alley, to be able to get back time in various different ways. I mean, but
Jay, you've got to pick one or two tools.
What do you mean, one or two?
We are inundated. Okay, I'll use my ocean metaphor again. If I go out on a really expensive boat, which I don't have, but I have friends that have them, which make it a great, great boat, by the way.
I know, right?
If I go out on a really expensive boat on the ocean, where do I go fish? It's big. Like the ocean is really big, and you don't realize it until you're in a tiny boat on the ocean. And if you were to drop a fishing pole just randomly, your odds of catching a fish are minimal. I mean, minimal. But if you go to a targeted spot and just stay at that one spot all day long, because you see fish instead of going and try to catch one there and try to catch one there and try to catch one there, the metaphor works like this, Jay. I've chosen the Google Drive spot out in the ocean. There's 1,000 tools out there, but I've chosen the Google Drive spot, and I'm fishing in that spot over and over and over again. And so now I'm at the point where I could tell 90 to 95% of people more about Google Drive than what they know. And it's just because I've fished there. I run my entire back business on it. I run every one of my clients' businesses on the back of Google Drive. And so, you could go Evernote, you could go, and all of those are fantastic. My point is, find one, pick one, and fish there for a long, long period of time.
Got it. I like it. And the funny thing is that I've recently, and when I say recently, I'll say in the last 12 months or so, have begun building more tools using technology and automation. And I remember saying something to my wife a couple, probably 2 months ago. And because it just occurred to me, it was like, everything that we automate, that ends up working. Anything that keeps relying on me or human interaction, that kind of is broken. I think there's a clue there. So would you say that this is the secret of your success, finding a way to not only just develop a system, but automate it so that the human element is as minimal as humanly possible?
Okay. So here's the thing. You probably have picked up on this more than once, and definitely in this episode for sure, is that systems are your business. Now, for some of you, maybe you are the system. That's the problem. Others of you, you're out there, you're building assets and pursuing cash flow, and that's awesome. because that asset is the crux of what delivers the value. And now your job is to build systems around that asset, that support that asset, that sell that asset, that account for that asset, that market, and make sure that the people know that that asset is available for use. That's what you must do in order to make your business grow and happen. So, one of the simplest ways you can do that is begin to learn from the systems that have worked in the past. And I offer you, the podcast listener, one right now, a free copy of my book, Cashflow Diary, 10 Steps to Creating Wealth in Any Economy. You can get your own PDF copy. Send a text message to 72000. Text the word book to 72000, and you will be able to get your own PDF copy emailed directly to you. Now, for those of you who are like, hey, I don't want to read, I'd rather listen, great. If you do the same thing, you will get an super discount on the audiobook, which has content that has not been repurposed or produced anywhere else delivered by yours truly. So you can, again, send a text message. Text the word book to 72000. Again, that's book to 72000 and be able to enter your details and get it emailed to you. And if you can't text, just go to cashflowdiary.com/free book. Now, let's get you back to someone who really understands systems.
I mean, I couldn't run the business at the scale that we've been able to run it. It'd be totally impossible because I've got some clients I meet with once a week, some clients I meet with every other week. I couldn't imagine showing up for a client that I met with this morning at 7:30. Next Tuesday morning at 7:30, I cannot imagine showing up and trying to remember what we talked about.
Got it.
And I hate it. It sounds horrible. Part of that is a function of my mind and how my mind operates. But part of it is a function of just the volume of data information that is coming into the human brain in the 21st century. And you have to leverage the technology to be able to bring in this kind of capacity. Jay, you could not run your platform without some variability of automated systems. You just couldn't do it.
I wouldn't. No. This is very true.
In real estate agents, which are often one man and one woman shows, you've got an incredible opportunity to scale the business without all the overhead. You don't. In fact, I've got a vision. I try to practice what I preach. I've got a vision for my business, and in my vision, over the next 6 years, by 2021. I have 0 W-2 employees that will work for me. I've put in my vision to have 6 virtual assistants because I realize limitations in my own mind. I don't work well when I've got to kind of share that onus of a W-2 employee. I would not sleep well at night if I had that. And so I've just kind of put it in my vision that I'm going to have 1099s. Well, it affords me certain luxuries. Now, having a W-2 is nice too. But the 1099s afford me a certain luxury, and that is the ability to scale and weather storms of profitability a little bit better long term. And a lot of real estate agents are in that same exact boat. So how do you get there? You have to leverage technology. Well, how do you do that? You've got to systematize and process it out.
Yes. And that's the thing where I tend to get stuck. And for those of you who are like me, this probably will relate. You get the fact that you need these tools, you want to use them, but you need somebody to give you a template on what to do now that you got it. And Scott, you are saving lives, my friend, right now. And I'm sure you know that. But I got a question for you. See, there's this other person out there who is, and for lack of a better way of putting it, but to be clear, is hiding behind the fact that, I don't want to start yet until I have this in place, until I have this in place and this in place, and all 12 things are perfectly in place. Then I will get started. How do you work with individuals, or what would you say to that particular personality or person?
You and I have both heard the whole MVP idea of minimally viable product, and there's real validity in that. And so, in fact, I'm working with a client right now who is shifting into a completely different product line, and they're literally phasing out their old product line. And so, what we did is we came up with a minimally viable product. And the good news is they've got a name, and right now, people don't ask questions like, where did you graduate from and how many years of experience do you have? They don't care anymore. They used to care. That question used to matter a decade ago or 2 decades ago. It doesn't matter now.
Nope.
And so the beauty of a minimally viable product is that people just want to know, this product, is it the ibuprofen that I need to cure my headache? That's what they want to know. And if it didn't come from MIT or Harvard, they don't care anymore. They just want to know, is your product the ibuprofen that's going to cure my headache? And so being able to understand the market and come with, in the case of real estate, if it's a certain residential product or a commercial product that you offer from a brokerage standpoint or whatever it might be, to be able to say, this is what I offer to the market. And you may be yourself going, but I mean, I haven't really done that yet. I mean, do I really offer that? Yes, you do. You offer that to the market. Have you done it yet? No, but you got to get started somewhere. So as it concerns me, the end user, I just want to know if what you offer to me, the market, is going to cure my headache. And if it cures my headache, I'm good to go. I mean, we're in good shape. I don't care if you've got all this experience. So go back to our both and analogy up front when we talked about, is it better to kind of be nomadic in these things, or is it better to get everything planned before you start? Again, this is a both and. Create your product while you're building your back end.
Yes.
And go do it all at once and be diligent about your back end. And so everything that comes up. So let's take an example. So you're going to start a real estate business, and you go in and you create a product. Actually, Jay, why don't you give me a kind of a real estate scenario, and then we'll build the systems off that so people can see it real time.
Well, okay. So are we trying to sell property, or is that what you're thinking? Okay, got it.
Do that.
So typically that's going to start with some sort of upfront education. For us, I tend to, whatever it could be a simple article, but at the end of the day, we go by the philosophy of he or she who educates the market dominates the market. So I can make an ebook, which will talk to you about buying whole property. And then hopefully from that, you'll be more interested in the idea. So when we have a property, turnkey, or one of our providers has something, you're ready and in position to actually take advantage of it, because I've already trained you on what you need to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's take the education piece. So you decide that you want to be kind of the first class educator of what you're going to do.
Absolutely.
All right. So how do we start in terms of systematizing that process? Because we've got every element of business that we've got to think about with this. Well, your key product is going to be the education side of it. So let's just pick one. And so let's say it's the ebook product that you want to pick. So let's pick the ebook product. Well, what you want to do is basically come in and say, okay, I've got to generate content for this incredible ebook that's going to offer real value to real people.
Right.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to systematically set up an approach where I write content every day. And so let's take my example from earlier.
You're hurting me. You're hurting me right now. Okay.
You're going to create a spreadsheet on Google Sheets because it's free. And across the side, you're going to put, in our case, coming up in March. In fact, let's make this real time. Coming up March. Let me pull up my calendar here. Well, I know this is going to be time-stamped and come out at a later time, but let's just take an example. So you come up on March 1st of 2016. On the left-hand side of the column, and let's say March 1st was on a Monday, just for the sake of our argument. You're going to put March 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And then you're going to put 2 breaks because you're going to try and get some rest on Saturday and Sunday, or maybe you won't. And then you're going to put 5 more days in March, and then 5 more days in March, and 5 more days in March. Across the top, the first thing you're going to put up there is write compelling content for ebook. And on Monday, March 1st, you're going to wake up and you're going to write whatever the length is of this compelling content. Day 2, you're going to write another compelling length of this content. And you're going to post it wherever you post it so you can repurpose it and that sort of thing. But you're creating a regular scheduled process for how you're going to create your ebook. And putting that kind of in place. Now, you want to master plan the whole thing, obviously. If you decide it's going to take 20 posts to create my ebook, then you want to, set aside 20 days to be able to do that. But then another document you can create within Google Docs is here's what my ebook is going to be. And here's what here's kind of what the outline is going to be. And over those 20 days, you just follow your outline, either with a mind map or a Google Doc or whatever. And so by the time you get done with that, now what you've got is you've got 20 posts ready to be put in a Google Doc that you can take the link for, and that becomes your ebook. And if you want an example for that, Jay, just have them go to your site because you've got downloads and all of that sort of thing. And so it's basically taking the idea of education, picking a product of that concept of education, in this case, ebooks, and then setting a regular schedule to populate that with the content that's going to be needed. And at the end of the 20 days or the 20 posts or whatever, pull the trigger. Pull a Jay Massey and pull the trigger and get it done.
Totally. You know what's interesting? I can tell you've done this before, sir.
We've done a few.
Yeah, right.
But here's the thing, Jay, is it changes the way business is done. I just had we worked with a bureaucratic office, tax collector, treasurer's office. I mean, this is a tough place to work. And I just got an email from the treasurer last week saying this is the first vacation I've ever been on where I've not been stressed out of my mind and on email the entire week. And it's because they put systems in place to empower their team. They have a team member that makes around $28,000 to $30,000 a year that is now leading their team meetings. All because they systematized and prioritized team meetings for them. We're a big deal. They systematized, prioritized it, put it in a process, and now they've got some of their lowest level people providing some of the most heroic service for them as an office.
Wow. You know, right now, I feel like I could just follow you around and things would get better because there's.
I think I feel that way around. That's why we're here, Jay, is because we feel that way around you. And isn't that just kind of the glory of collaboration?
Yes,
is the ability to go. You know what? You're fantastic at that. There's an Old Testament verse I'll share with you because it's so powerful. Actually, there's two different segments of it. One is in Exodus 31, 1 through 11, I think. And the other is Exodus 35, 30 through 35. And it talks about these two guys, Bezalel and Oholiab. There's two Jewish guys. And it says that God put within them the spirit of craftsmanship to be able to make artistic crafts of various designs. Now, most of us that live on this earth assume that the Creator only put some sort of spirit within those who are uniquely endowed, right? Billy Graham, the Pope, whoever.
Right.
But the reality is that He's given each of us this really unique gift. Where we get frustrated is when we try to, the old classic, drive outside of your lane. And
right.
So we've got to be very careful. And so that's where I've got to collaborate with Jay Massey to say, hey, Jay, you're a rock star implementer. I can come up with a process and content all day, but I don't have a clue how to get this out to the market. You do. You're fantastic at that. And you look back at me and go, I don't know how to process anything.
No. And that's actually the funny thing about, or I won't say funny, ironic thing about this is that I've been coming to the realization we have a number of systems in place and I have a number of people on the team. And I've been thinking, especially like the past 10 days or so, I've been like, my function in the company is fundamentally changing at this point because they're trained. They're ready to implement at the drop of a hat. They don't necessarily need that from me now. What they really need is me to learn to step back and plan out the systems and methods of attack to go out there and continue to deliver value. And so it's very, very timely and / ironic and odd for me. I'll call it a big sign of what Jay's supposed to be doing, because in the next step I need to grow to, sitting here talking to you, and I'm just like, yeah, everything you're saying is exactly what I need to be doing, because that's what's the next step. That's how we're going to get to the next place to be able to serve more people.
Jay, let's, as you can tell, I like metaphors. So let's take the airplane metaphor. So when you started just the whole Cashflow Diary platform and all of that,
sure,
you were the pilot, you were the flight attendant, you were the, you were pulling the landing gear up by hand.
Yes,
the flaps down by hand. Or you turning the prop by hand.
Yep.
Then as time went on, you made a strategic decision. You said, you know what, I'm going to get other people to serve the passengers, to clean the toilets, to make sure there's air in the tires and all that stuff. And I'm going to play, and this is a tough shift, and it didn't happen overnight for you.
Nope.
But you said, I'm going to become the pilot. I'm actually going to sit in the cockpit and push buttons, pull levers, and monitor the altimeter and that sort of thing. Now what you and most people feel like that's where it stops. Like once I can be a pilot of the plane, I'm good. In fact, most small business owners haven't even made it to that point yet. That's usually where I'm helping guys get to the point where they can go into the cockpit and begin to fly the plane, visually and just by pushing buttons and doing checklists, classic pilot checklist. Where you're at the point of, and I've got a few guys that have reached this point, is where they want to bring in other people to fly the plane.
Yep.
And what they want to do is they want to be the Boeing engineer that creates new jets and new innovative ideas and those sorts of things. And that's where you're at. It's the ability to say, you know what, I'm going to hire pilots. We've got an incredible team. I'm going to hire pilots to come fly this plane, and I'm going to go create new planes.
Yeah. That sounds like a great vision.
There you go, man. You're the cash flow engineer now. And really it's beyond that. It's not just the cash flow diary engineer. It's this niche that you have been put here to create or to serve. And you finding that niche, which you found the majority of it, and saying, you know what, I'm here to serve them. So I want to find different kind of planes to serve them with. This plane is going and serving them well. What other planes will be out there that will serve this particular group of people?
Indeed. I hope you guys are taking many, many notes. And if you're anything like me right now, you're thinking a couple of things. Number one, you're thinking, how can I find Scott later? Because I got some questions for him. So Scott, before I get that email, how can they track you down?
Jay, thank you. I'm humbled that you would ask and even offer your platform for this. So really the best way is to come to a site that we've set up called 4 Steps to Business Freedom. That's what we're trying to get business owners to business freedom. We want them to be free from the minutiae, as Michael Gerber said, from working in your business, and we want them to experience the freedom of working on their business. And so just go to 4stepstobusinessfreedom.com. It's all spelled out, 4stepstobusinessfreedom.com. And there will be at least one button at the top. Sometimes we do a little flash pop-up, a second button. The first one is for anybody interested in being a part of a Business on Purpose mastermind group. These are very tightly processed, as you can only imagine, tightly systematized mastermind groups where we get small business owners literally from around the world together on a weekly basis, and we hammer out all of these things that we've been talking about. And actually, we've got an opening for a real estate agent. We don't have any real estate agents in the group. We've only got 12 seats open for that. And so you can go to there's a button that says click on to learn more about a Business on Purpose mastermind. So you can click there. And then periodically, I offer 30-minute free coaching sessions. And sometimes there will be a button up there for that as well. And a lot of times at the bottom of that page, Jay, we offer strategic planning workbooks. A lot of the tools that we use with clients, periodically we'll just throw those up as well, completely for free. We're kind of Santa Claus. We like to give stuff away. So 4 Steps to Business Freedom is the place, and we have a great time within the platform, and it's just a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I can hear the change happening. And if I know, for those of you listening, you're hearing the change happen as I'm talking and as I'm sitting here interviewing and listening and going, here are new things. So yes, you can expect new things because that's what we always do. I'm always growing. Now, I've got one more question for you. Let's say, for example, that someone right now is, they go, you know what? I want to put on the superhero. They're standing in front of the superhero outfit store. Okay, this is where you pick up the cape, right? So they're going to
still have to give me directions too, by the way.
Right? Exactly. So, but they're out there. They're going, do I want? Do I do mask, tights? They think they want this. However, in the back of their mind, they have, the voice, and this voice because you've done battle with this voice multiple times. Every time you've had a great idea, every time you want it to step into something greater than what you currently are in your present place, anytime you think move forward, that voice has been a companion many, many a night. What would you say to the person who has that voice ringing in their ear right now? What would you say to them that would give them the shot at being set free?
Jay, let me just share with you what I do. Instead of just offering kind of theory, I want to give you praxis. And because Aaron Walker is my business coach, and from the time I had a very tumultuous landing to get into where I'm at today, and that's a whole nother story and a whole nother podcast. But A year ago, almost to the date of this recording, I was laid off from my job as the executive director of a faith-based non-governmental, completely blindsided by it. And it was completely out of my control. And I'd never started an entrepreneurial for-profit business before. We had church planted and done some different things, but never a for-profit business. And I kept telling Aaron every week when we would talk, incessantly, every week, I hear voices. And the voices keep telling me that I can't do it. Like I'm not going to be what if. And so here's finally where I came to the conclusion of, is I've got something, and I pulled up my sheet that I look at every day. It's sitting here right in front of me. And there's something that I pray every day. And it is this prayer of liberation. And it says this: I will not be a slave to insecurities and worry, because I am encouraged over and over and over again. Do not fear, do not fear, do not fear, do not fear. And do not worry about tomorrow, because today has enough worries of its own. And so I wake up every morning and I repeat that. I will not be a slave to insecurities and worry. Does it mean I'm not? No, heck no, I was this morning, which is why I've got to recite that over and over again. So it's not just theory. That's actually what I do. I don't know that the voices are ever going to go away. And so I've chosen to push through them, and I've got an incredibly supportive spouse. My wife, she just constantly neutralizes those for me.
Yeah, I can totally relate. My entire family is now they now know when I'm like, I got to go for a walk. That's code for Dad's freaking out and he needs to go pray. Because there's no other way I have found to tame that monster. And they just know now that that's what's going on inside, and it comes back and you do
Jay,
battle.
Doesn't matter how much money you make, does it?
Nothing. There is nothing temporal that can make it go away, because it all can be gone tomorrow. You're one decision away from everything being completely different than you currently understand. And sometimes that decision doesn't even hold within your own hand, which is that's when it's really, really tough, is when something like that happens. So I just wanted them to hear in your words, like, hey, because they hear it from me all the time. It's like, look, that voice is just going to be there, you know?
It's there. Constantly ringing.
And it's nothing. That doesn't mean it's not even truth. It doesn't mean you can't. It just know that that's just part of it. Learning to do battle with it is part of what you now get the privilege of doing because of the choices that you're making. So, That's right. I definitely appreciate, again, you taking the time to invest some serious knowledge here. And I know that there's going to be people who are like, man, I need to do everything he said, because I'm feeling that way, as I said already. So I definitely appreciate you taking the time to enlighten us, to help us, and to build some more entrepreneurs out there in the marketplace. Thank you very much for investing here with the Cashflow Diary.
Well, Jay, thank you very much. And we would love to be able to offer help to anybody we possibly can. You as business owners, real estate people, you are the heroes. We're just what I tell my clients is, I'm just a little green man on the sideline with big ears, and I speak funny, and I'm just a little green man, and that's what I do. But you're the heroes out there, transacting real estate and doing all of those things from an economic standpoint and from a relational standpoint that push people and move people and change people's lives. And I'm just happy to, as you are. I mean, we're both just happy to play a role in that. So if there's anybody that we can serve, then we would be happy to do that.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean? That means it's 4 steps to businessfreedom.com. That's where you need to be, because you said at least once today. Don't tell me you didn't, because I already know you did. You said to yourself at least once, I should, and you filled in the blank with something. So let me tell you how to make good on that should. Is that you get over to 4 steps to businessfreedom.com, click whatever button comes up, and take measurable action towards the desire that you have just stated that you want. Move at now o'clock. It's been fun talking to you guys today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.